Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CKCB Features, the interview show that we have, and we haven't had one of these in a while. It's been a hot minute since we've done a features episode. So, but welcoming tonight, I'd like to welcome in somebody who was raised in the same cult that I was. Surprisingly enough, this is the first episode with a survivor of that cult for Faith Assembly back in episodes 10 and 11. You know, my experience in the cult. And this is the first survivor that I've had on the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to welcome Andy to the show right now. How's it going, man?
Oh, not too bad. And thank you for having me here. It's good to be talking to someone else who has shared some of the same experiences.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I've wanted to get a survivor from Faith Assembly on. I've tried multiple times, and like we were talking about earlier and everything, but for whatever reason it just didn't pan out, and you are the first. Well, second, because I was the first. But anyway, so just go ahead and let's get it started. I'm anxious to hear this, the story from another standpoint, like for the first time with somebody telling me, so I'm anxious to hear this. So let's go.
Well, I guess in a general sense of what Faith Assembly means to me is something I'll probably be working out for the rest of my life. I guess the first thing that would come to mind would be kind of a mountain to climb, a struggle. It was a cult that shaped my whole reality. I was born into it, and I didn't know anything else. And because of the isolating nature, I didn't really have friends outside of it, and the family I had outside of it, I did have a relationship with, but not quite to the same level that probably would have been the case if I didn't, if we weren't in the cult as a family.
So, how long were you? How long were you personally a part of it?
I was born into it. My parents met in marching band at Purdue University, and there was a satellite church called the Lighthouse in Lafayette, Indiana, which is right in that area.
Bruce Kenzie, right?
Yeah, Bruce Kenzie was the minister there.
Thought so.
Yeah, he led that, so he was part of our satellite church. I visited. We visited the main church a couple times, but much more familiar with.
Did you go to did you ever actually attend the Glory Barn?
It would have been post Glory Barn days that I went there, and I couldn't tell you much. I think there was actually a building at that point, but I don't remember that much because we only visited a couple times, and I was still pretty young.
Yeah. Well, that building is a warehouse now for boats.
Interesting.
So you were born. Oh my God, I wasn't born into it, and I think that if I had been born into it, it would have been a lot harder for me to, because I was even as a young kid, I was questioning everything, and I couldn't. It just seemed off to me. I mean, I'm a Virgo. So, which astrology is a sin.
Oh, of the worst kind, yes.
Yeah, but no.
I'm surprised you haven't been struck down so far.
If you look into I don't like follow horoscopes or anything like that, but if you really look into the basic descriptions of the people born under each sign, they're pretty accurate. They're pretty accurate. Just the descriptions. I'm not talking about like reading horoscopes or anything like that, but I analyze things, and I did that as a kid. Now, but had I been born into it, where that's all I didn't know anything else. I mean, I imagine that. So, um, so tell us about your upbringing as far as, like as far back as you can remember, like specific things that happened or whatever. Maybe it doesn't even have to be anything like really bad, bad things or whatever. Just things that stuck in your mind from as far back as you can remember. Like, for example, my Star Wars figures. I remember those vividly. but um, but but yeah, I remember my dad taking me to see Star Wars. Yeah, that's probably the earliest active memory that I have. What's your earliest active memory as far as like the Faith Assembly is concerned?
Well, at this point, it's kind of a memory of a memory. But when I was 3 years old, um, we I had a brother that passed away in childbirth of a collapsed lung, um, and I remember that. I can tell you um, some friends I tried to talk about in the cult even, and we were just supposed to not acknowledge that it happened. Um, I was at another. My parents had sent me off to another family's house because at that point um, you couldn't have children in the hospital. So I came back and was expecting to find my sibling, and that wasn't the case. And that's moment that stayed with me for a long time. And I know you're a musician, but "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd used to make me cry every time I heard it
Yeah.
for many, many years. So I know it's a very different meaning to the original band, but that's the way it hit for me
Well,
because
yeah. I mean, music is how you interpret it. I mean that's freaking rough, and I knew exactly what you were implying. What you meant when you said that, but yeah, God, that's horrible. And can I ask what happened to the baby?
um, my dad wasn't as strict of an adherent, although he was in the cult for most of it of the time from when they got started when they moved to Indiana. When my parents met, and then up until Bruce Kinsey left, he was a part of it, but he wasn't quite as strict of an adherent as my mother was. So he actually did call um, emergency services,
Okay.
which was very shunned, and I don't think we were supposed to tell people that because that would have probably gotten us kicked out.
It was a sin.
Yes.
People, if you're listening to this wondering why I'm doing that, go, if you haven't listened to 10 and 11, go back and listen to them. It'll be clear to you. I'm honored. I'm honored that I just got to say I'm honored because Andy here messaged me on YouTube today saying that he had heard the two episodes that he'd grown up in it, and he appreciated what I had done. And I got back to him. I'm like, "Hey, you want to come on? Yeah, when? How about now?"
Well, at least I don't have to think too much about it now.
so, no, I'm honored because, like I said, you're the first one of hopefully will be hopefully more will come, but the reason I asked, for people who might not know, the reason why I asked what happened to the baby was because there are probably who knows how many babies buried in backyards and through the Indianapolis, that region of Indiana. Who knows how many babies? Probably even like wives that died in childbirth too, which did happen. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of them buried in backyards as well. And I'm not even kidding, people. I am not even kidding. When I said a couple episodes ago that I know a lot more now than I did when I did episodes 10 and 11, that's the truth. So I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. It's nervous laughing. But
I know you're right. I mean, I know there's some reported death counts out there. Um, I've heard 100, I've heard 91, but I know the real one is maybe possibly much higher because they wouldn't report things like that if it happened.
right.
I'm sure
Oh,
they
by the
did
way, yeah,
bury. Yeah.
I buried my stillborn son in the backyard. Yeah, guess what? You're going to jail, bub. You know. um, so no, there's no telling. And like I was telling you earlier, and like I've said, if you factor up all the number of known deaths between Faith Assembly, all the satellite groups in the United States and throughout the world, you have a body count higher than Jonestown. And you also have, but if you factor in all the ones that we don't know about, the ones that were, where they got away with it, where the kid, a baby was buried in the backyard or whatever, the number could be even higher, or is even higher, guaranteed. So, I mean, it was a horrific thing to be in, for all those involved, and all except for Hobart Freeman and the brass. The brass being Steve Hill, Bruce Kinsey, Tom Hamilton, and a couple others. But so okay, what you know, take us to where you want to go next. I mean, I want you to tell your story. I don't want to. I don't want me to have you tell the story that I want. I want you to tell the story. So, but
Um, it was just very isolating. I mean, when you're something that I remember being 3 years old and I had a 1 year old sister, and I remember there was a lot of mourning in the house, and I felt like I had to take care of her at three. And looking back on that, I'm like,
yeah,
that's something else. That's
that's
really
horrible,
not something I should have had to feel.
right?
Um, and that there was a lot. I went through a lot to forgive my parents. Um, Now that I'm a step parent, I do see um, the humanity of adults. Like there are a lot of tough decisions, and you're going to make the wrong ones, and those are very wrong. But I've kind of learned to let go of the resentment and just forgive, just because I need it for my own personal healing too. And I
Yeah,
do
you
still
don't.
want to have a relationship with them. So
Well, you don't forgive for the person you're forgiving. You're forgiving for yourself,
yeah.
for your own mental health, and yeah, that's something that I struggled with for a very long time. But my mom and I did make peace. So, but so okay, so you get into okay, you were 3. You get into kindergarten, or were you homeschooled, or did you go to public school?
In kindergarten, I was in public school, but I remember, like you said, the holidays I was excluded from. I would be sent to the library and not allowed to participate. And just with all the restrictions and rules, I was different from the beginning. So my classmates all saw me differently, and I didn't really fit in, and kind of feel that way to this day. Um, I've had trouble with making friends and relationships, and I didn't have my first serious relationship with a woman until I was 31,
Oh
and it
well,
was one I shouldn't have married. I did. So she'll agree. She'll agree that she shouldn't have married me either. But yeah, I wasn't ready, and even then, so it, it's been you know a lifetime of dealing with a lot. But I think um, and honestly, it's been hard for me to talk about it with anybody, even my close friends or my wife or therapists. I pretty much just won't talk about it, and I think I've come to the point where I do need to kind of get it off my chest, and maybe thinking telling my story will help a little bit move past um, the struggles that we've been through.
Yeah, it definitely does help. Um, so, I mean, did I know that when I had to go sit in the library and whatnot, I got made fun of.
Oh yeah, constantly. I was very paranoid. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you there, but I was very paranoid because I was teased a lot. So at some point, I just assumed I was being teased all the time.
Yeah,
And then people would make fun of you because they were just trying to be nice to you, and you still felt like they were picking on you. And it was a lot of memories of just being ridiculed. And when you're different, and then people find that you're the person that they can pick on, and everybody can pick on it. It gets to be a lot. So that that was fun. But then for first grade, I stayed in school, but I struggled. And in second and third grade, I was homeschooled, um, but that didn't go well either. I was a
it
wild
never
kid living
does.
in rural Indiana, and we, the rules about how they, encouraged you to have as many kids as possible. And at that point, I had multiple siblings, and my mom had to tend to them, and I'd run off in the woods and play when she wasn't looking.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have five surviving,
So it would have
so
been six.
yeah,
So for a total of seven.
yeah.
Wow.
And of course, there were families that had a lot more than that,
Oh
so
yeah,
we were pretty average.
yeah. You were average. I mean, there was only one family that I can remember, and the that actually took that to heart, and they had like six kids, and they had the most in our location. But going back to what you were saying about the about being ridiculed, teased and all that stuff. I mean, I was at one point. At one point, I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to the library. I'm gonna do this, and oh my man, and the daughter of the second pastor who we spoke about, we're friends now, but she ratted me out because we were in the same grade. She ratted me out, and oh man, that I caught hell for that. I mean, I was doing I was singing Halloween song. We are going to scare you. I was doing all that and everything, um, and she had, for whatever reason, she wasn't in the library, but she wasn't participating either. So she went and reported back, and oh man, I got my ass kicked by my mom, and I got admonished by the by the pastor. It wasn't her dad at that point, but I got admonished by yeah, I was but I'll tell you one thing. I've gotten in contact with with an older woman. Well, she's probably about 8-9 years older than me, but I got back into to her. She's still kind of on the fence about whether it was good or bad and all that stuff, and I've talked for hours with her, and she even admitted, she's like she's like, I want to apologize to you. Like, why? You didn't do anything to me. She's like, no, I want to apologize for everything that happened to you. You specifically were treated horribly. And she went, recanted some things that my mom had done, like basically flogging me in front of everybody just because of, something stupid and whatnot, and being rebuked by like everybody and all that stuff. But it was because I was critically thinking even as a kid. It wasn't because I was necessarily doing anything wrong. It was because I was, I wasn't towing the line. I wasn't being a good little soldier. And and that's something, that's something. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I did go through the whole brainwashing and all that stuff. I mean, for the longest time, I was afraid to listen to Judas Priest. But I got over that. I've seen them in concert twice. I've met Rob Halford. So, and he's gay.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got better, but
But yeah, I mean, you're right about the public, spankings and worse. I mean, more physical, different objects and things like that. I mean, I remember at one point, like we were going to parades and I like clowns, and then suddenly they decided that clowns were sinful, and I talked about wanting to go see a clown, and I got spanked for it. So at one point it was fine, and maybe even the same week, even I was like, I like that clown, and I got punished pretty severely for that.
Well, clowns are creepy.
Yeah, I don't like them now, and maybe that's was beneficial, but unnecessary.
So, was there a point in your in your experience where, as a kid, I'm not talking about as a teenager, but I'm talking about like as a kid, where you're just like, something seems off here?
It's kind of hard to remember that, because I remember even being at the point of when Hobart Freeman died, praying with other kids my age, and I would have been 8 years old at the time, for his resurrection. So I was still pretty, even up until his death, still pretty ingrained into it. And I just didn't know any other reality. So I didn't question it as much. And it took me a long time. I went to college for a couple of years, and I struggled. It was such a social, I don't know. It was being exposed to normal American culture was such a culture shock for me that I couldn't succeed academically, and I failed there. And I think that was a big part of it. But even then, I was still doing things that the cult would have forbidden. But it took a long time for me to even call it a cult and to think about there wasn't anything beneficial, because I struggled for a long time trying to find some good in it. And I guess I wouldn't say there's zero good, because you do form relationships there, but they're not healthy. And
No, they're not healthy at all, because they're sitting there. It's a rat out culture, basically.
Yeah.
If you I mean, if you do anything, it's gonna get back to the, it's like, yeah, I can think of countless times where I was ratted out. But this is your story, not mine. But I mean, were there times that you got ratted out for just stupid things, like like, I don't know, listening to the rock radio station or whatever, and somebody heard you? It's just something that means absolutely nothing, but at the same, but it was blown up into like, oh my God, you're going to hell. You need deliverance, which means we get to beat the shit out of you.
Well, my dad did break some of the rules. Like we owned a TV, and that was pretty painful. Not that we really watched it, but I probably watched it 3-4 times, and in my years before I was a teenager, in my whole life. And at some point, we were caught watching it. I don't remember what we were caught watching the first time, but they moved out to the garage so that we couldn't see it. And a group of friends of mine that were in the cult, actually, we were young. We snuck out to the garage to watch Dukes of Hazzard, and boy, I got one of the biggest whoopings of my life after that. We got caught doing that.
The funny thing, it's funny you mentioned that, because I remember Dukes of Hazzard being a big no-no during my time as well. But the thing about it is, their big issue with Dukes of Hazzard was they're breaking the law. But if you watch those episodes, every single episode, Bo, Luke, Uncle Jesse, and Daisy, they're all doing the right thing. They're pushing the right message. They're pushing this is how it's supposed to be. They're basically fighting against a corrupt system, and showing you how good people behave, which, it that blew my mind, looking, I mean, not then, but later on when I watched when I binged the entire series, all except for what was it, season 5, where they had the other two Dukes come in. That was horrible, um, but but still, I mean, that was if you modeled yourself after the Duke boys, guess what? You're going to grow up to be a pretty good person, you know. And,
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that was one of the more major offenses. I can't even tell you how many times, we if we got caught playing cards or a game that involved dice or spinning, like Chutes and Ladders was considered satanic because it was a game of chance, because of how you don't know how many spaces you're going to move. So yeah, it was just lots of things that normal kids do that you would get, and sometimes were permissible, and suddenly they weren't, and you would
oh yeah, they moved the goalposts whenever
yeah.
it suited them.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing, I mean, the biggest thing about about Faith Assembly was the fact that was the controlling nature, as far as like don't go to the doctor and everything. That was probably the worst of it, which caused a lot of unnecessary suffering and all that stuff. I mean, I'm gonna tell you something that you might not have realized. The whole time Hobart Freeman is talking about don't wear glasses, don't go to the dentist, don't go to the doctor and all that stuff. Don't wear crutches. Don't use crutches if you have a broken leg or whatever. Where's your faith? Where's your faith? The whole time he has polio, so he's wearing a heightened shoe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty hypocritical,
Very.
but not surprising, because he was quite the beacon of hypocrisy there.
Yeah. I mean, the whole time he's wearing a shoe with a lift in it, and he's got polio. That's the same as using crutches. It's the exact same thing. And he would blast people for wearing crutches. Where's your faith? Well, where's yours, asshole?
Well, I mean, even in my young adulthood, I mean, I remember being 19 years old. I got German measles, and I wouldn't get it treated because even though we'd left the cult for many years, it didn't leave me entirely. So as an adult, I could have gone to the doctor on my own, but I can't tell you what the first time I went to the doctor in my life, I got a case of pneumonia when I was 23. So even though Hobart Freeman had died when I was 8, it took me to 23 before I actually saw my first doctor.
Wow.
And I was in the hospital for 3 days, so it was the point where I was passing out, and it was the right time. But I can only imagine what because I've had asthma my whole life, and of course
what sins have you not repented for, Andy?
You're just a bad kid. If you have asthma, it's your fault. And just like when my brother died, it's because we didn't have enough faith. That's what I was told. It was my fault as a 3-year-old that my brother died. So, and my family's fault too. And it wasn't, it wasn't the faith thing. It was.
But when Freeman died, when Freeman died of gangrene and diabetes complications and whatnot. It was because God decided it was time to bring his servant home. Everybody else, it was because they had unrepented sin, or their faith wasn't strong enough. Freeman died. God decided that he wanted his servant with him.
It was almost like his body wasn't even his, like the way we thought it. It was almost like he was never. It was just like almost an avatar of this deeply spiritual being that was godlike. So even if his body died, he would come back in some other form.
Yeah. I mean, I hate Kenneth Copeland, but I would love to interview Kenneth Copeland about Freeman, because Kenneth Copeland even said that Freeman was a nutcase. If Kenneth Copeland calls you a nutcase, there's something wrong there.
There certainly is. Yes. I think I kind of remember. I mean, he was somewhat sanctioned at some point, but then, like every other, preacher or any other Christian faith, they were all considered evil, and you couldn't associate with them, even if they had really similar beliefs.
Right.
You couldn't associate with. They were not the faith assembly, so they're going to hell. And
basically, anybody that existed on Earth prior to Freeman becoming a pastor was going to hell. Like, everybody.
I remember that
because only Freeman had the true doctrine, and all cults will be like that. I've got the true doctrine. I referenced this this particular podcast on on several of the cult episodes. There's this what the hell is it called? The Cult Next Door. It was about a cult that was very similar to Faith Assembly, and except this guy was a little more liberal than Freeman, meaning that, well, at first he was just as like goody two shoe conservative as Freeman was, but later on, when he started noticing his numbers dwindling, he changed it to allow more fraternization between young boys and girls and stuff like that and everything, and started even it just got creepy real quick. But in their the opening, this podcast is done by the children of this cult leader. They basically abandoned him and told him to fuck off, and their own dad.
And for that's really courageous. Yes, I know.
So, but in the openings, they take clips from his sermons and everything, and there's one that's like, you're not going to hear this from any other church out there. God is speaking through me. He's speaking through me. You, me, and that's all Freeman was. It was all me. And I wonder. I doubt these two knew each other, because that guy, this is a lot more recent than Freeman. But still, it's just like they're all cut from the same cloth.
I remember there was a commandment that if you ever see a Hare Krishna person at the airport, you can't shake their hand, because that would be saying that you agree with them, and that would be an instant trip to hell. And we were on vacation at kind of a family cabin, and some neighbors who were introducing themselves, and they wanted to shake my hand, and I wouldn't do it. And I didn't realize that because they're not Hare Krishna, I could shake their hand, because it wasn't forbidden for everyone, but because they were obviously of a different faith, because they weren't in Faith Assembly, I didn't shake their hand. And right. So I was chastised both by the people in my family who weren't in the cult and the ones who were, because I should have shaken their hand, but I wasn't really aware at a young age that, because they're not Hare Krishna, I can shake their hand, but if they, belong to a close enough faith, I can shake their hand, but I certainly can be close friends with them or anything like that.
Well, I can remember, like, speaking of what you're talking about there, I can remember being out, at a church function at a lake, and all of us kids were playing together and all that stuff, and I happened to run up, away from the lake up to get something or whatever. Maybe I was getting some water or something like that. I don't know, but I can remember, overhearing my mom saying to another mom that was there, it's just like, look at them. They're just sticking to themselves and playing together. They're avoiding, intermingling with evil. These were just other kids. We were playing together because we knew each other. We weren't like, oh, let's stay away from them because they're evil. You know, I mean, it's just so freaking stupid. And I remember thinking to myself, that bugged me. I was like maybe 10 or 11 at that point, and it just bugged me. It's just like, we're not religion. We're not doing this because of religion. We're doing this because we know each other. We're not going to go pair off with, like get in on somebody else's crowd, because that would be rude. It's just like everything everything had to have a tie into God. Everything you did had to have be in one way, shape, or another godly. Everything.
I remember like being lost in a car. Like if you can't find where you're going, you took a wrong turn, and obviously you weren't listening to the voice of God because you got lost. Just if there was construction and you weren't familiar with the area, God must have been punishing you, and so you got lost on the way to where you're trying to go. It's just every decision, and that I was crippled with decision making for
who needs a
so much of my
GPS?
life.
Who needs a TomTom GPS when you got God?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I grew up. I couldn't make decisions, and I still struggle a little bit. But even minor stuff, because every decision had major implications. If you did something wrong, you like turn the wrong way on a street, then it could mean that you're going to hell.
Yeah. It blows my mind. It blows my mind, the crap that we were fed as a kid and expected to frickin' follow. And the podcast, Leaving the Message, the William Branham historical research podcast that I was telling you about, they read an email the on the series where they're talking about Faith Assembly. They read an email from an older woman. She was saying that that a lot of the kids that were, the people that were there in the 70s and 80s and everything, Generation X basically, a lot of them had turned away from God, and it was like really heartbreaking and all that stuff. I'm just like, can you blame us? It's not that we turned away from God. It's that we turned away from, institutionalized mind control. That's what we turned away from. We didn't turn away from God. I believe in God. I still believe in God. I don't, but I can't walk into a church without my anxiety going through a roof. I mean, it's just, I can't do it. And that's something that, is always going to be there. It's just like, I'll try every now and then. It's the same thing. Last time I went, I talked to one of the people there, and I explained the situation. I was like, yeah, I'd like to talk more about this with somebody. I filled out the card, gave him my information. Never heard anything. So it's just like these churches nowadays, especially non-denominational, which is when I do look for a church, that's kind of what what I steer towards is non-denominational. But it seems to me that those churches that want to welcome everybody, they're not equipped to handle somebody with the type of baggage of being brought up in a religious cult. They have no clue what to do with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. People in a church have less of an idea of what you went through than people who aren't, because they don't understand. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but I mean, we were certainly trained to not trust anyone in any other religions, and there are only two perfect beings, and one was God, and the other one was Dr. Freeman, as we always called him. We didn't call him by his first name, or that. It was always Dr. Freeman, because
I just call him Hef.
Yeah, I know. Hef is a better word now, but that's all we ever called him, was Dr. Freeman, because He was not a commoner. He was basically the only perfect being, and any other place you could go, you'd see imperfections in someone, and then you would be like, well, they can't be the vessel of God like Dr. Freeman was. And so I've been to a lot of different churches, and I kind of right now I kind of feel like if there's a loving God, then they'll find me where I'm at because I know what I've been through, and I'm
Right.
not too worried about, you know, if I play backgammon if I'm going to go to hell.
How old were you when you got out of it?
Well, my dad left when I was 8, when Bruce Kinsey left the cult. Um,
He
I,
left. He left because he called Freeman out on his bullshit.
yeah, yeah, and
Which,
you know, bravo to him, right? Because it wasn't he as like a son-in-law.
yeah,
So
he
that
was
had,
he was a son-in-law, and I can remember listening to Bruce Kinsey's testimony tape and everything, and about how when he met Freeman, Freeman's like, well, do you believe in God? No. But then he finds God and winds up becoming a pastor. But no, I think Bruce Kinsey and what he did was like the equivalent of like Darth Vader redeeming himself at the end of Return of the
yeah.
Jedi.
I mean, he wasn't blameless. I mean, but you know,
No, he
I mean,
wasn't. But
but
still,
yeah,
but he left. I mean, he the whole story is told in that podcast series I was showing you about. I mean, it's just like it's just blew my mind. I was just like, okay, all right. If there's anybody out of this whole hornet's nest that I can have have some respect for, it's Bruce Kinsey.
and he was the worst of evil beings when uh, he was probably worse than Satan himself when he left.
Oh
But
yeah.
you know, I mean, I don't remember much about him personally, but he was in Vietnam. He served in Vietnam, and I remember because Sunday school was forbidden, so all children of all ages were basically, unless they were infants, were in the service, and he would tell
Right.
some stories about Vietnam that kind of scarred me. It wasn't really appropriate for younger kids, but I don't remember much about him personally. But I do
Well, that's just
remember,
it. That's just it. They don't care about anything. Yeah, they didn't care about anything. I mean, they would basically bring a kid up and beat the shit out of the kid, claiming the kid had a freaking demon. You know, and that's just that that's the part that kills me. It just like on top of everything else. I mean, Freeman was about to be indicted. Well, he was indicted. He was about to go to trial for negligent homicide, and and then he died. um, yeah, Freeman didn't kill himself.
I mean, there were demons everywhere. I mean, that's one thing I remember, and um, I remember like I had the demon of jealousy, and I remember like I had a list of I think at least 19 that I supposedly had, and I was exercised probably at the age of 8 or 9 for all these demons I had, like jealousy and doubt and questioning and things like that. So I think there were a couple different times I wasn't. It didn't happen in front of the whole church, but I think it was brought before one of the elders to perform this exorcism, so that I would stop doubting and being prideful of my achievements and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I like. Okay, pride is a big sin and all that stuff, and it's like if you can't have pride in your accomplishment, why do it? Because and I think that was a driving factor, just another weapon that Freeman had in his arsenal about how to beat people down. Because if you do something and you can't take any credit for it, all the credit has to go to God and all that stuff, then guess what? you're just a worker ant. That's all you are. And I mean, he knew what he was doing. I
Oh,
mean,
I'm sure he did. I mean, I mean, wasn't he a salesman? I mean, I'm sure you knew how to read people and
well,
manipulate them.
he was a shyster before he got led to God, and I can't remember if I said this in episode 10 or not, but he allegedly found God when he was on his way home, um, in Tampa, Florida, and it was on. I think it said that he was on Dale Mabry Drive when he had this revelation. Well, there's nothing but strip clubs and a football stadium on Dale Mabry Drive.
He ran out of money when he went to the strip club, and that's where he had his revelation.
I'm serious. I think Dale Mabry. I think it's been a while since I've really looked into that and everything. I think that he said he was coming back from like being on Dale Mabry Boulevard, and like I said, nothing but football, nothing but the Buck Stadium and strip clubs on Dale Mabry.
And football was, of course, a big sin too because of the violence. I mean,
Actually,
you could be.
actually, the Bucks weren't a team back then, so it was nothing but strip clubs.
Oh yeah, because
the
was
Bucks
it
came into the
76
league in '76.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was already well into being a cult leader at that point. So it was nothing but strip clubs then.
I think after he passed, we went to a church, I think led by a pastor called Jeff Barnett. And if I recall, he played football for Indiana University, and he repented of that sin. So because football was horrible, but he was very a righteous person because he repented of playing football.
I love football. I mean, I really do. I absolutely freaking love football. It's just it's such a people that don't get football, they don't understand. They think it's just a bunch of people lining up and running into each other chasing a ball. No, it's a chess match is what it is. It's a physical chess match is what it is. Because I mean, it's just I love football. But and for it Steve Hill had that whole series about no 9-inning games, but that encompassed all sports, and it was all a sin because it's a spirit of competition. Well, if you don't compete in anything in life, how are you going to better yourself? You're not.
You had to be helpless, and the only thing you could be proud of is that you were in the one true chosen church of God. That's the only thing. You have no ego.
Well, what if I was just like, all right, I'm in this church, don't care.
Well, you were forbidden from not smiling. You had to smile all the time, because you were so happy because of the freedom you had. So that was forbidden. I mean, and I remember you mentioned something about enjoying the songs, the minor keys, but I remember that was sort of shadow banned. I don't remember if it was officially done, but there was a lot of gossip and criticism for when they're playing minor keys in worship because you had to be happy all the time.
There were two songs. Yeah. There were two songs that had minor keys, and I can't remember. One of them was "Then shall the Virgin rejoice in the dance." But but you know what that is? That's a frickin' Jewish song. That's Jewish music with Christian lyrics thrown on top of it. I kid you not. That is a Jewish song with the "Then shall the Virgin rejoice in the dance, both young men and old men together." La 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 la. Yeah, that. And I can't remember what the other. There was one more, but that's a Jewish song, and Jews are going to hell. So, what does that say about them? I didn't realize that was a Jewish song until many years later when I got on YouTube. Like when I started like investigate, like when I got into my discovery mode. and I start listening to, like Then Shall the Virgin. This Jewish song pops up.
I remember.
It's the
go ahead.
same music. It's the same music, but it has completely different lyrics, and it's Jewish. It talks about the Torah. It talks about stuff like that. And so I googled the name of that song. That song came out a long time before the Then Shall the Virgin song. So yeah, they totally just took the music of a Jewish song, and you can even hear it in the freaking music. I mean, that's Jewish. That's
yes.
That's Jewish folk.
It sounds
music.
Great too.
Yeah, it does. but it's minor keys. But so yeah, they appropriated that while telling you that Jews are going to hell because they're not part of Faith Assembly.
My dad took us kids without my mom to a different church when I was 10 or 11, and their worship song that was like to the tune of the theme for Chariots of Fire, and we were and my mom was like, "You can't go there because they're definitely going to hell because they used the theme from Chariots of Fire to make that song." Meanwhile, they're actually already doing it in Faith Assembly. So
that's a beautiful piece. That's a beautiful piece of music.
Oh, it is. It's moving too. Yeah.
And what I don't get is it's just what did they have against music? I mean, it just music. I honestly think that the whole thing was music didn't become an issue. I mean, rock music and all that stuff was frowned upon and everything, but music didn't become a hot button issue until Steve Hill started releasing his original music.
I don't remember Steve Hill's music as much, but I remember there was somebody called Carl Sykes, maybe, or Carl Seitz. I don't remember how to pronounce it. It's a vague memory, and I remember that we listened to that music a lot. So I'm not sure where he fit in. I think he might have been part of the main church there, but I couldn't tell you much about the history there. I remember the music was good, but it was one of the only things we could actually listen to.
Well, the music director, I can't remember the music director. That might be who you're talking about. The music director, who was there for a very, very, very long time. Like from the beginning until well after Freeman died. But he was, God, I wish I could remember his name. Carl doesn't ring a bell for me, but I can also remember. I can also remember, like, there was this talent show that was recorded either at the Glory Barn or at the other building. But yeah, it's like that was appropriate listening. Like people getting up and singing songs and all that stuff and everything. And yeah, it's just like I must have, and that tape got circulated, and down to us in Florida and everything. And my mom grabbed it and made a copy of it and all that stuff. And I must have listened to that tape like 100 times, and I can remember thinking, like, that must be so cool and all that stuff. I was already a guitar player at that point, so I was imagining myself up on stage, playing and all that stuff. But it just, I mean, it's stupid. I mean, it's stupid that they would put a limit on that. It's just like, okay, well, what's wrong with, say, I don't know, Striper? But,
Striper. Oh yeah, that was.
I love Striper. I caught COVID at a fucking Striper concert. That's episode 11.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember. I mean, I was in my teens. Well past when we were still in the cult and getting in trouble for listening to things like Striper, and Petra.
Petra. I've seen Petra in concert too. I've seen him twice.
I went from listening to classical music and a country album I got at a minor league
No, but
game when I was missing.
classical music is bad too. Like Steve
Oh
Hill
yeah,
said, you want what's wrong with classical music? Well, that's just like saying what's wrong with jazz. Okay, what is wrong with jazz other than it sucks?
I remember being a teenager and I would listen to Tchaikovsky's. We had a record tape. I listened to Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, and at some point, that was probably thrown away because apparently he was gay or something. So he just I was corrupted from some composer from hundreds of years ago because of his orientation with no lyrics.
Two of my top 10 favorite singers are gay: Rob Halford and Freddie Mercury. So,
well, you can't beat Freddie. I mean, he was one of a kind, and I have no such qualms anymore. But that was pretty forbidden there. I'm sure if they found out that you were gay, that they would kick you out instantly. But it turns out,
well, they would probably try to exercise you first, and then if that didn't work, they would kick you out. But still, premarital sex is a sin.
Oh yeah, for sure. But there were gay people there, because I don't know if you remember Ray Boltz, because he actually had he was actually made it big nationally, and he was part of the cult, and he had something to do with maybe our satellite even, and he came out as gay.
What's his last name?
Boltz, I think his name was.
Bolts or Boltz?
I think it's Boltz, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm going to write that down. I'm going to try to get him on.
I have no idea if he's still around or not, but he was actually popular nationally in the Christian music world. He had some song called, I think, "Watch the Lamb," that was pretty popular.
All right, I just wrote it down. I'm gonna if he's still alive, I'm gonna get him because I'd love to talk to him. If he was part of Faith Assembly and then became a Christian rock guy, wow.
Yeah.
He would have been excommunicated.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I couldn't tell you much of the backstory. I was very young, but so the details might not be correct, but yeah, but that's as I recall here.
But I mean, like Stryper, for example. I mean, they went into the most hedonistic, section of music that there has ever been, which was the 80s glam. And they preached. You know how many people they've like led to God and stuff? Thousands. And you're going to tell me that they're sinful because of, the everybody that they led to God, their salvation is not legitimate because of the fact that they play heavy metal. I mean, it's stupid. I mean, it's just like,
yeah. I mean, if you look at the life of Jesus, I mean, he was criticized for hanging out with the sinners, and that's exactly the opposite. We were criticized for hanging out with the sinners. So, I mean, of course, you were very open and welcome to people who were coming to visit because you wanted to lure them in. But, associating with them outside of the church was very forbidden, and that's Jesus had it wrong apparently.
Yeah, right. Did I tell the story about my mom flipping out because somebody in a grocery store almost ran into us wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt?
Yeah, you did tell that story, and I know I've had exactly the same experience. The whole blood of Jesus, like, quick prayer thing was, my mom might have said it 100 times a day. Anytime anything happened, you hear a loud noise or. something must be, Satan is attacking you everywhere because you're the only holy church. So any minor thing is Satan's attack. So you need to say a quick prayer of the blood of Jesus, which, one of the few things you can say that will cover you and protect you.
That's nowhere in the Bible, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure.
but the reason I bring that up is because just quick recap for people that aren't that haven't listened to episodes 10 and 11. My mom, we were in the grocery store. We rounded the corner, me and my mom and my sister. We rounded the corner and this guy came around, pretty fast. almost ran into us with his shopping cart. No big deal. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You're my bad." And my mom freaking panicked because he was wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt. And she gathered me and my sister up. She's like, "The blood of Jesus, I pray you deliver us from the evil that's on that man's shirt." And I'm not freaking lying about this. But the reason I bring this up is because when I was in junior high school, I had learned how to by that time TV was okay again and VCRs had become somewhat affordable. And we had one, but I had learned how to splice tape back together. And my buddy in school had this Iron Maiden videotape the tape had gotten cut. And we were talking, and I told him, I'm like, I know how to I can fix that for you. Just bring it to me. So he brought it to me. I took it home. I fixed it, and I pop it in the VCR, and I'm watching it, just to make sure that it's okay. And all of a sudden, Mom walks in, and the video that happened to be on was Number of the Beast.
Wow! I remember. That there was a seminar, I think, downtown Indianapolis, and there just happened to be a Pink Floyd concert downtown that we walked by to go into the seminar. We had to say a quick prayer to cast the demons out of us because we heard music coming out of the stadium when Pink Floyd was playing.
God. I love Pink Floyd. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I don't listen to them very often, but when I do, I need to listen to them. In fact, I'll probably be listening to them again real soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But my mom just, "What are you watching?" I mean, I fixed a tape for a friend of mine at school. I'm just making sure that I fixed it correctly. But she saw the tape case lying on the coffee table. "That's Iron Maiden." "You've got to. We have to pray over you, Mom." No, Mom. Because this is when I started pushing, like really, really, really pushing back and telling my mom, "No, I'm not doing this anymore." I'm like, "No, Mom, this isn't going to damn my soul to hell just because I fixed an Iron Maiden tape for a friend of mine." "Well, he shouldn't be your friend." Because he likes a genuinely good, like amazing metal band. By that time, my mom had already, accepted the fact that I was going to start listening to heavy metal, but she just didn't approve of Iron Maiden because of their evil, scary imagery.
Well, I remember like I always internalized myself as the bad kid, and my brother would have been the good one had he lived. So
what did you do that was so bad? Tell us that. What did you do in your mind that was so bad?
Well, I was always getting in trouble, so naturally I wasn't a good kid.
But what were you getting in trouble for?
I think I had a lot of attention deficit issues, and I know that I had a lot of focus, so I was considered rebellious. And
so you had a demon.
Yes, I had a demon. But I listened to Shine On Crazy Diamond by Pink Floyd, and I would be like, that's what he would have been. He would have been damaged, but he would have been at least good. He would have been the diamond, you know?
Yeah. I wish Pink Floyd would just pull it together and do one more tour.
Oh, yeah.
More. With Roger Waters. Just do it. I'll pay whatever the hell. I'll buy a seat at the very top of the stadium. Yeah, I'll go. I'll pay $500 for that seat. But at least, yeah, I really regret that I never got to see Pink Floyd in concert. I mean, David Gilmour is such an amazing guitar player, and it just.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. I could listen to him for hours.
Yeah, I love that he's not like flashy. It's just like feel. It's soul. It's just like his guitar solos just like punch you in the freaking heart and just grabs it and just like you feel it, and a lot of these guitar players can't do that, and I just wish that I would love. Just come on, guys, just one more time. Hell, just one show. Do it in Tampa.
I remember, it's not music related, but I remember this house I grew up in until I was 4. It was kind of a drafty old place, because you weren't allowed to go into debt, of course. And right. We rented from kind of a crazy old farmer. And one day he just flipped, and he started doing target practice right outside our window because he was angry with us. And my dad realized we were in a dangerous situation, and he took out a loan to buy us a house so we could get away from that.
Sinner.
And, yeah, that was we were told in no terms because, of course, my mom was very much against this, even though, the alternative of staying was pretty bad. Yeah, yeah. We were told in no terms that were we to tell people in the cult that we took out a loan to get this house. It would have been better to stay and possibly be killed because that would have been our faith.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you actually got killed, I'm trying to do a Hobart Freeman. If you actually got killed, then guess what? You'd go to heaven and be with Jesus. Is that a good half?
It's better than I can do. I'll say that much. But I remember like the kitchen appliances Hobart. Like I thought somehow those were holy. It was never really conveyed that way. But like Mom, that's Hobart. And she's like, well, that's not really related. But just having the name Hobart, I was like, it must be some sort of glorious thing.
I remember Todd, rest in peace. And that, in episode 10, when I called him Hobart, he's just like, what, like the industrial dishwashing equipment?
But there are certain. I mean, do you remember there's certain foods you couldn't eat, like angel's food or devil's food, because that would be sacrilegious. Either of those cakes were, and I think at some point because angel's food and devil's food cake existed, you weren't supposed to use cake out of a mix at all because somehow it could be tainted with either of those at the factory.
There is this like musical meme that somebody put together with like auto-tune and like annoying keyboard music. It's talking about my band was playing a show and my Christian keyboard player's keyboard broke down. We had to borrow a keyboard, and he didn't realize that the keyboard belonged to somebody who wasn't a Christian. And he's singing it with this like robotic overtone, and in fact, it's like, and he flipped out, and we had to pray for forgiveness for using the heathen keyboard.
Well, yeah, objects had that power, right? Because you pray over a cloth to send to someone, and they were supposed to be miraculously healed if they, once the congregation prayed over it and it was sent to them. But in the opposite end, a keyboard that was owned by a non-Christian could possess you with demons. Or a T-shirt from Iron Maiden, like you said, you could be possessed just by looking at it. Especially if you liked it. If you liked it, that would certainly mean you're demon possessed, because only a demon could make you like an Iron Maiden T-shirt.
Well, you know what makes me like Iron Maiden? Their music. It's amazing. It's incredible. But they, yeah, it just goes on and on and on and on. And I'm glad that we're talking like this and everything. It's just kind of more of a discussion than it is an interview, which is fine. But but I do want to keep I do want to keep it like talking with your experience and everything. So I mean, any was there at any point did you like start like kind of pushing back or whatever, or did that come later? Or if I asked you, did I ask you that earlier?
Well, yeah, I mean, and there were little ways I rebelled, when I was younger, even like when I was sneaking out to the garage to watch TV and things like that. But I can't tell you if there's any logical reason why there are things I didn't question, like why I didn't go to the doctor until I was pretty sick of pneumonia when I was 23, even though I'd left the cult for a long time. I mean, I remember one time I had a bad case of bronchitis. I had chronic bronchitis for a long time, and my dad tried to give me some medicine for it, and I spit it into the toilet, and it was like a wrestling match with my dad because he really wanted me to get better, and well, my mom prayed in the other room that the medicine wouldn't actually reach my stomach enough to make me go to hell. I feel so bad for both of them because of the mental torture for my mom and then for my dad. Like, he just wants to make me better. And
that's a great point. It is mental torture. It is mental. That's a great freaking point. I never even thought about it like that. It is mental torture to freaking put these, to put your congregation, the people that pay your freaking salary, that lets you drive that fucking brand new Cadillac and trade and pay cash for it every couple of years and all that stuff. Which Hobart Freeman, he loved his caddies, but it's mental freaking torture and everything. It's just like the phrase. Wow. The phrase comes to mind: "Don't bite the hand that feeds you." But
yeah.
that's all. But that's all Freeman did was bite the hand that fed him. That's all he did. He would freaking come down on people. He would just not just Freeman, all of the all of the people that were under his ilk. They would just like come down on these people and beat them into submission. Tell them that everything they're doing is a sin. They're going to go to hell if they don't follow this particular code and all that stuff. And it's really freaking sad.
And they change the code all the time just so that you could never feel at ease. Like, it was impossible for you to feel like at peace. Like there was with every breath there was a chance you were doing something that would send you to hell. And and the things that people were kicked out for, families were broken up, as you well know, over minor stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if they found out that my dad was watching TV, then I mean just when my dad left, when Kinsey did, my parents
they called TV the one-eyed monster.
like we're supposed to shun my dad. We weren't supposed to talk to him. We lived in the same house and they stayed together, but we were basically supposed to not talk to him. Like,
they hated it. They hated my dad. My dad was my rock. My dad was my anchor. He kept me, and I don't even think that he was doing it out of spite. I think he was doing it because he knew it was wrong. And he wanted to make sure that I got through it. Because I mean, I can can't remember if I said this in the episode, but when my mom and dad divorced under the command of Faith Assembly, I fucking lost it. And my mom told me that I was, it's a spirit of self-pity. And like, no, I don't want to lose my dad,
Yeah.
But my mom was just, she didn't care. And my dad, he knew what he was doing. He was keeping me grounded because I just I got nothing bad to say about my dad, but I do wish that he had just picked up a phone at some point, be like, look, this is what's going on here. But because whatever. It's the first time I've ever said that about my dad. But this stuff doesn't go away, people. It doesn't.
Never, no.
I mean,
I don't know about you. I mean, it's a little bit different, but like at some point, like Amway was a big part of our particular satellite. Like
Amway?
we were supposed to, make money. Like we weren't being, holy enough. And we would go around to different door to doors, and my sisters would be wearing their long shirts and, very, very plain outfits, and we looked very out of place trying to sell Amway to people because it was supposed to be the thing you're supposed to do.
Holy crap, I didn't know Amway had been brought into this. I mean, Amway on its own is cultish.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really surprise me that one particular satellite location decided to incorporate that.
It was never, I think, officially for the main church, but
I can no, that wouldn't. If it had been in the main church, I would have heard about it. But no, this was probably something exclusive to yours. But you're under Bruce Kinsey, though.
I don't think it was even him. I think it was like an associate pastor, as I recall, possibly, and who turned like some kind of prayer meeting basically into an Amway club, and I guess probably they were trying to make money for themselves, so they're recruiting people to work Amway sales.
Any type of pyramid scheme is a cult-ish. It makes sense. It makes sense that they would do it. They probably marketed it as something like you want a job that's not going to send you to hell? Do Amway. All you have to, and you'll make a lot of money. All you have to do is get like 20 people under you. They get 20 people under them. They get 20 people under them, and you'll make millions of dollars.
Well, it was probably more so you can buy tracks, books, and cassettes.
I hate those chick tracks. Every time I see one, I cringe. They're called they're called chick tracks because the person that originated them, his last name was Chick. So that's why they're called chick tracks. But those little things about like you read through them. It's so cringe. I wish we had known we were going to talk about that. I would have pulled one up and read it. But everybody knows what I'm talking about though. Those little books that are like 3 inches by 2 inch by like an inch and a half or whatever. You flip through them and everything, and it's just the ridiculous stories and everything. He smoked one. Johnny smoked one joint. And then he died and went to hell.
I couldn't tell you very much about the layout of the church I went to. I was pretty young, but I can sure tell you there are always tracks around and books and cassettes because those are always laid out.
Looking back on it, that's one thing that like boggles my mind because it wasn't those weren't anything that came out of Faith Assembly.
Oh, really?
They came from a different. I can't remember which. I think it came from somewhere else. It came from a different cult. But
I remember there was a book for sale that was written by like a former doctor about the evils of the medical profession, but I don't remember much about the content because I was just too young to read it. Although, I mean, I read the whole Bible through at the age of 10. Not that I would have any comprehension, but that was considered a huge badge of honor, even though there's no way I could really understand it.
I used to own people at Bible trivia.
Oh yeah, they really drill it into you. You know
I mean,
that, yeah.
even though I haven't really read the Bible a lot at all for a number of years, many years, I could probably still win a game of Bible trivia with like sitting down with a group of people that go to church regularly. I could probably still win.
The way I feel about the Bible now is kind of like, until I learned Aramaic and Hebrew and Greek for myself to learn what people were really saying. No,
crap.
I was saying, until I learn all that, I'm not really going to know much about what it's saying, because it's a translation, and there's certain things you're just not going to understand in the translation.
Fire me off a Bible trivia question, just off the top of your head. Let's test this.
Is there a Romans 3:25? No,
no, not like that. There probably is.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or their Hebrew names.
You got me.
Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh man, but still.
I've forgotten more than most people learned.
That was funny. I set myself up and I set my shot and I lost.
We can always edit that out.
No, I'm not going to edit it out.
But isn't it weird how important music was, but at the same time it was so, I mean,
it was their music.
It was well done. I mean, they had plenty of instruments. It wasn't like it was the United Church of Christ where they completely forbid instruments, but it was somehow like, I remember, but there were some weird rules. I think I remember drums were supposed to be bad at some point because they were African, which is
racist.
Odd. Yeah, it's racist and odd, and it's not the only racist thing I think I remember. I remember some things like the song, like the "Rain, Rain, Go Away, Come Again some Other Day." That was supposed to be some sort of African magic spell. So,
yeah, because of the freaking the freaking torrential downpours that would come through there and everything, destroying all that stuff. Destroying all their crops and everything. It's like it's a desert and then it's a sea.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, so yeah, I mean, I get it. It makes sense. I mean, it would be like, it would be like somebody in Florida, like writing a song about how they wish mosquitoes would all just die,
Oh yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it's satanic. It just means they're getting sick of getting tore up by mosquitoes.
Yeah, who doesn't write songs about what's going on around them?
Yeah.
Especially if you're an agricultural society, rain is almost everything. So,
right,
but that one's more like you're going on a picnic. But still, I mean,
we're in the rainy season right now. I just mowed my lawn like a week ago, and it's already like a foot tall. It's like rain, go away, come again some other day.
The blood of Jesus. No.
God, I'm having fun. We can keep going.
It's the only way. It's the only way. You have to have humor. Otherwise, it just you're so. It's a lot to deal with.
Indeed. Oh man.
Well, do you remember like prophecies, like like the Russians or the Chinese are going to invade America, to punish us for our sins and things like that?
Well, before we get to that, you're talking about music and everything. My mom played guitar too, But she wasn't my inspiration for picking up guitar. My inspiration was when I freaking because she didn't play guitar for me very much. In fact, I can only remember her playing guitar after I got into it. It's like, oh, you can play too, Mom? Oh, okay. It
My
was
dad
when
played
we.
in the music services too. Like
It
I
was
came
when
from.
it
What?
was when we. It was when we first started going there, and I saw them playing the guitars. I was just like, I want to do that, And but um, my mom wrote this really good song. Like um, I don't remember the whole thing, but I remember some of it. But I mean, for a praise and worship song, it was a really good song. Um, and she presented it to the church and everything, and no, nope, yeah, it's not part of the doctrine. It's not part of the thing. Basically, it would have been a song that she wrote, which she would have been proud to have everybody singing her song.
Was there ever an instance of a woman writing a song that would have been included? Because I'm thinking that probably never would have happened because
No.
that would have been shameful for a woman to write a song that men would sing.
Okay, I'm gonna sing all I remember from that song. I think this is I think this was from I think this was a verse. I can't remember, but it's just like but the way of the cross was the way he had ordained in a life of holiness. Doesn't that sound? I mean, it would have easily worked.
Oh,
It would
and
have
then holy is
easily,
such a huge concept, right? I mean, I remember
yeah,
like when families were breaking up because one person wasn't, one wasn't in the cult, in the they would be like, well, you know, who was in the cult was too holy for the other person because
right.
we were holy and we're the only ones who were holy. You could have been like a devout believer in a Baptist church and you weren't holy because you weren't in the cult.
Yeah, but still, I mean, they totally should have, like I mentioned in the episode, that my mom making those freaking doll babies and everything. It's too much like the Cabbage Patch Kids. You know what I found out? Those doll
What's that?
babies were first. The Cabbage Patch
Really?
guy, yeah, the Cabbage Patch guy ripped the doll babies off.
Are you serious?
I am
That's
dead serious.
awful. That's
So
awful.
okay, what I think my mom just is owed an apology.
Yeah, for sure. That you might have a legal precedent there, but I remember being terrified of the Cabbage Patch Kids because there was a story told, or this I think it was an older woman, and if if this older woman told the story, she probably had dementia of a Cabbage Patch doll being possessed by the devil, and it was and like just like in a Chucky. Like
Yeah, they made a
where the
movie
doll,
about.
yeah, exactly. But it was threatening them, walking around and threatening them and things like that. And they brought in a
Bullshit.
Catholic priest to perform an exorcism on this doll, according to the story. Not that I don't believe, but they ended up having to bury it in the backyard in a casket in order for the Cabbage Patch doll to stop possessing the house. So I was terrified of those things. I believed that as a child, and now it's like that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, have you heard the recent thing? It's like they took Annabelle, they took the possessed Annabelle doll out of the road, and all of a sudden the paranormal TV show host that was like hosting the tour died.
That's crazy.
It's just like I don't know what to think about like Annabelle and about Robert the doll and all that stuff. But you know what? I'm not going to give fate the finger.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go see those dolls. I'm not going to say anything bad about those dolls. I'm not going to do anything. If anything, I have nothing good to say. I have nothing but good to say about Annabelle and Robert. You guys rock. I love you. And I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. Mm-mm. Yeah, I ain't gonna mess around with that. It's just like I don't, I think that the Warrens, they were con artists and everything, but I don't know. A lot of crazy stuff's happened around Annabelle and Robert. and, and I'm sorry, I am not. Nope, nope, not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent. Oh man. Um. So tell us about your eventual exit of Faith Assembly.
I've had to, there's no like magical moment because it has been
Well, because
a
magic is a
process.
sin.
Yeah, that's true. But there's no one to fight. It's like I think that's going to be the rest of my life.
No, I
Part of
mean
me is
like
always there.
when you actually left the church. That's what I meant.
Okay. Well, I mean, that kind of depends if you count when my dad left or when.
You
mm,
personally.
Yeah, my mom was still going to some services after um, Hobart died there. Hef, let's call him Hef. Yeah, for sure. That's a great. But he moved us out of state to be closer to my grandparents, so we wouldn't have any exposure to it anymore. And that's when physically we left, even though we still for a while maintained some contact with some people that were in there. I had one at one point. I had one friend come up to visit, but that was it. Um, it's mentally,
Oh, so y'all just up and left.
yeah,
Just
yeah, like physically left because, because well, women were supposed to be submissive, and at one point my dad was like, "You can't go to these meetings anymore," but so she was kind of conflicted. Sometimes she would kind of sneak away to go to something if he was away, but
stop being submissive.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So at one point she was not being submissive, but she also had to be in this cult. So, but yeah, I think we moved up to kind of get a new start and get away from all this. I mean, at one point we were going to move really far away, but we moved closer to my grandparents, which I appreciate because it's good to be closer to family. But
Now, were your
yeah,
grandparents part of
we had to
it?
physically. Oh, they were not part of it all. It was awkward. They're more traditional people.
Okay, so yeah, I can imagine
Yeah.
it would have been
Mm.
awkward.
They try to do what you can, but like weird stuff. If you try to give someone a gift of a board game and you have to throw it away, and they ask you, what happened to it, you have to tell them because you can't lie either, and just really just awkward stuff. It was just designed to make you separate, right?
That was
Mm-hmm.
designed to divide, to put wedges in with families.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody gives you a game of Monopoly, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta throw it away because of the fact that that promotes capitalism and greed. So so you have to throw it away, but you're also not allowed to lie. Where have you been playing that Monopoly game that I bought you, Sonny? No, no, Grandma, I had to throw it away. Well, why? Because it promotes capitalism and greed. You're going to hell.
I remember visiting my mom's dad one time, and I don't know if it was Chuck E. Cheese at the time. I don't know when the Pizza Time. I don't know when the name changes happened. I have a special needs son who can tell you the exact dates of everything, all the costumes and all that. But
Oh,
he took,
those were a
mm,
sin.
yeah,
Same thing as
yeah.
Disney World. I mean, yeah.
All of us kids believed, all six of us, or how many ever he had it then, believed that if we enjoyed being around a costume character, we would be possessed by the devil. So we're all screaming in terror as he tries to take us to this dinner that he was really trying to just be loving, but it
Yeah,
was really a horrible experience for him. I remember that he didn't understand it at all, but why we were all so terrified. It was because we were told that we would be possessed by demons for enjoying these costume characters.
Exactly, but you see, they drill this into you and everything.
Mhm.
What Freeman was doing was basically, it's like, okay, he already had people meshed in, but he was focusing on the kids to make sure that the next generation, after he was gone, would still be even more meshed into whoever the heir apparent was, which was Steve Hill. And um, it's diabolical, is what it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, it, we were taught not to question at all. Now I'm like, this guy, and when I'm, family history goes back, and then, well, in the beginning it was kind of nice, and there was no problems with it, but it just got worse and worse, and I don't believe that at all. I think he had evil designs from the beginning to just manipulate people, because whatever he got off on that for whatever reason, and he just wanted to manipulate people, and so you just change things all the time and
You know
mess
what?
with their heads. And
He was at one of the strip clubs on Dale Maybury. He tried to touch a girl's boob. She slapped him, and then he decided, I'm going to become a cult leader.
well, yeah, you have so much power, and I to my knowledge,
one thing that he never did, which I got to give him props for, and I don't think that had he lived on, I don't think that would have ever come to this. He did not sleep around.
yeah, I haven't heard any stories like that.
And I do got to give him props there, because a lot of cult leaders, once they get into that establishment, it's just like, Brother Smith, God told me that he wants me to fuck your wife.
I don't know of anything that from any of the clergy, from my knowledge.
None of that happened. But there are. This didn't happen in my satellite location, as far as I know. But there have been stories of adults messing with kids, that have come out of the various locations and everything. Didn't happen where I was, as far as I know. But
I know that happened first, like pretty much firsthand. And I couldn't even tell you names right now or at that. And
don't
some
tell
people I
names.
know, but
just tell me what happened.
But I do know, like, I know one child touched another child, who was an older child touched like a younger kid inappropriately, in a genital area. And and there's some other stories that I know are true, but I don't have a lot of details, and I certainly don't want to. I don't want to say it was sanctioned by the clergy, but I know, because you were not allowed to go to the courts,
right?
Because only the church could arbitrate that. That chances are it was happening to a decent amount of people, and it was covered up. But I don't know for sure. I don't think anybody's ever said that. But stuff was going on that was not punished.
I mean, I've heard stories, about things that happen and everything, but none of this was about Hef. So yeah. I mean, it's just, so he wasn't going to be one of these, like Jim Jones types that had to fuck everybody, or he wasn't one of them. And and when it came down to it, I mean, he practiced, with the exception of his raised shoe, he practiced faith healing to the day that he died, which his death could have been easily prevented. Which is crazy to me. It's just like,
yeah. But meanwhile, you weren't allowed to wear chapstick. Because it could possibly be medicated.
It's medicine, yeah.
Yeah, it could be medicated, so you can't wear chapstick, but it's okay to wear a corrective shoe for your polio.
Yeah. I mean, he was a total hypocrite and everything, but at least he wasn't a pedophile.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot you can say about him, but yeah, that is true. I don't think there was anything officially happening, but there was stuff going on because there was a culture of secrecy that people took advantage of. But I can't say for sure that any of the clergy were involved with it because I have not heard anything about the clergy at all. But I do know credible stories that I'm not going to go into detail because that's not my story. Nothing happened to me personally, but there are stuff that happened to people I know that for sure, nothing ever came to them. You could be kicked out for wearing chapstick, but someone at some point probably had to know something and they didn't actually excommunicate anyone to my knowledge for something like that.
Yeah, they it's just Freeman, before he died, had bought up like several trailer parks. That's all we know. He bought several trailer parks, several large trailer parks.
That's interesting because at some point people were living in the Glory Barn, weren't they?
No, nobody was living in the Glory Barn.
Okay,
but no, he had bought several large trailer parks, and nothing ever happened because he died. But there's speculation that he was going to say, "All right, everybody who wants to come and be part of the church, come up here. I've got trailer parks. I've got a place for you." He was setting up a commune.
Oh, I mean that's a likely thing because he restrict things more and more. I was actually born in a hospital. And the rule there was not you couldn't have medicine, but you could actually be born in a hospital when I was young. However, you couldn't have medicine. I was born premature, and there's some sort of medicine that my mother was supposed to take, but she couldn't because it was forbidden. But you could be born in a hospital. But when hospitals started to notice, these patterns of infant mortality and stuff like that, it was forbidden. So only a midwife could come to your house to help you deliver, and they couldn't be a trained nurse because that would be
a sin.
Yes, that would be a sin. But that's it was
just do it like that. A sin. Come on, just do
it. A sin.
No, a sin.
A sin.
There you go.
Assassin. No.
It feels so much better when you do it like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, but if a trained midwife had been in my house, they would know because my cousin's a doctor. You blow into an infant's mouth to inflate their lung when it's collapsed, and that's all that it would have taken to save my brother. Just training, and that wouldn't even necessarily be considered medicine. That'd almost be considered like imparting life. Like right. That might have even been sanctioned, but the fact that you can't have a trained nurse there, seeing that what you're doing to neglect, your care, it's a tragedy.
Let me tell you how brainwashed they were. And, this one, I'm going to use one woman as an example out of the location that I was in. When I was bitten in my armpit by a brown recluse, and it had swollen up the size of a freaking grapefruit, there was a woman in the church who had been a nurse. She quit that job and was working at a fast food restaurant because she didn't want to be in sin. But she came over, and everything, and looked at me, and she's like, "This is about to turn gangrenous. Let's lay hands on him." A nurse.
I know she wasn't the only one. I know there are other stories I've heard too. Like, how do we get all these diagnoses of the stuff that went around, like the whooping cough? I know that affected our family. There was a whooping cough, like epidemic, basically, and then I don't know if it hit your satellite or not, but it certainly hit ours. But yeah, it was. We all got hit with whooping cough. How do we know it was whooping cough? Like somebody used to have some training and then they diagnosed it. I don't know for sure it was, but
a registered nurse instead of saying, this is about to turn gangrenous, get him to the fucking hospital right now, she said, let's lay hands on him. And it did turn gangrenous. That's one thing I have in common with Hef. I've had gangrene. My freaking, and all of a sudden, it just started draining. That's where the 4 scars come from. It just started draining. And, my mom's like, she God healed you. No, my immune system healed me. That's what your immune system is for. It's to heal you. There's nothing godlike about it. Your immune system is in your body to heal you.
Well, that was a big part of it, right? Because that your immune system healed you, but God wouldn't heal you right away because He had to test your faith. And if at any point you thought that you confessed that you were sick, then the devil won, and of course you deserved it. But it took a while to heal because you had to test your faith.
It took it after it drained. It took a good 3-4 months before it completely went to, completely healed. And it's not healed. It didn't. It's disfigured. Shit. You want me to? I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to anybody that might send me a message like, "Did that really happen? You want to see?" I'll freaking pull my sleeve up right now and show you.
It happened, and I remember like there was some kind of metal swing, and actually it was like a swan head. I didn't actually think about this, but if a kid suddenly stopped when they were being pushed, bam! I cracked my head pretty severely, and I remember like my parents had to take me home and hold like a handkerchief to my head for a significant time. And there was I had a lot of loss of blood, and I still have I can tell you where it was on my head. I can feel it, and I was told, well, at least you're lucky because if you were a heathen, then you would have to go on an ambulance. So you should appreciate that instead of crying. When I'm probably at max 4 years old at the time, because I remember what house we were in.
I'll take the ambulance, please.
But yeah, because I'm crying, it means I'm not showing faith at 4 years old because my head's gashed.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to have like really long hair, and when I got it cut off, I went like shorter than it is now. I was just like, you know what, like enough, and I realized that I live in Florida, and the jobs that I had required me to put my hair up underneath a hat. It's like wearing a freaking wool cap in July. So I was just like, finally, I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Well, no, that was the second time I cut it. First time I cut it, I just cut it just because I was just sick of it. But I grew it out again. Then that happened. The first time I was living in Tennessee, but as they were like buzzing it and everything, right around here, they found a scar that was about 1.5 inches long and about 1/4 inch wide. They're like, what the hell happened here? I'm like, what are you talking about? And they showed me in the mirror. There's this freaking huge scar, like right. I can feel it right now. It's right here because it's elevated. And I'm like, I have no idea. Like, that's a hell of a scar. I'm like, okay, so both my parents were alive at that time. My mom said that she didn't remember. My dad said that he vaguely remembered me running and falling and cutting my head.
I remember I was 5 or 6 years old, and we're on a playground, and a kid fell off a slide and was knocked unconscious. And they're lying on the ground unconscious, and we were supposed to show disdain for the family because they were calling the medical authorities. So we were supposed to like leave the area because they were committing evil, because they were trying to care for son who had just passed out, like literally unconscious, lying on the ground on a playground.
Yeah, that's borderline Westboro Baptist Church, is what that is. I mean, the God hates fags people.
Oh yeah,
You know
I'm
that
aware.
that
Yeah.
that's like very similar to what those
Mhm.
chuckleheads do. I mean, um, it just, oh man. So, I mean, is there any is there anything else that like really? I mean, okay, like tell us about your transition into it. I know it's been rough on you and everything, but tell us about that.
It's kind of been a lonely path, you know, because anybody you try to talk to about it who hasn't been through it, they just don't get it. And they can, even if they love you, they can be sympathetic, but they don't understand. So you kind of have to just take a step back and analyze things. And it's taken me a long time to realize, throw it all away. All of it was bad. There was no
Yeah,
good intent behind it, and don't worry about it anymore. But yeah, it it it's been a long journey, and I've had you know I've had a very isolated life. I don't spend a lot of time with friends, and I do spend a decent amount of time with my family because they get it. But I've had trouble with relationships because they don't understand the quirks I have, because you know I'm still having nightmares about demon possession for stuff that would never really happen.
right.
you know, like I still have. I had when I was a young adult, 18 or 19, I started working in a factory, and there was um, a combat veteran who came up to me and he's like, "Where did you serve? I can see that you were in the military." And I didn't serve anywhere, but he could see the PTSD in me because of all the trauma, and I've had trauma since then, but yeah.
I've had
Mm-hmm.
that happen to me too.
Mm-hmm.
Some somebody somebody I was working with asked me just like, "Dude, what happened to you? Did you serve in the military?" No. Why? Why do you ask? Why would you ask me that? It's like, because I can see it in your eyes. You've seen some shit in your life.
And that's
What
exactly it.
happened? Like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, but I knew exactly what he was talking about, but I just didn't feel like talking about it with a freaking random coworker.
I know, right? Exactly.
But if that happened to me now, I would. I'd be like, you got about an hour and a half. You got 3 hours. Go
Mhm.
listen to episodes 10 and 11 of my podcast. So
But I carried a lot of anger, you know, with my parents and people who were indoctrinating everyone, and I had to kind of put it all away for my own healing, because I have to realize that people are flawed, and you know I can't move forward if I keep holding on to the past, and that's basically what I had to do. It's been a very difficult journey, and there's not been um, anyone who's really helped me the most on that. I just basically had to do it myself, because you're trained not to trust anybody, so you really have to do a lot of self thinking, and you analyze everything. What is actually real? I mean, that you have to, from the ground up, you have to kind of basically say, what is reality? Because it was so warped that, is that really an ant walking on my, you know, driveway? Is that a real thing? Because I remember having an existential crisis as like an 8 or 9 year old. I mean, I would be like, it was very philosophical, and I've talked to like therapists about that is strange. But like I had such an identity crisis, like what is reality crisis so bad that like I didn't believe anything really existed. and that's about right around when my dad left. It was like nothing was real. Like I couldn't go to a sporting event and like think that it was actually going on. Like in my mind, everything was an illusion, and there was no reality. And I kind of had to start from the ground up just to kind of process what I really believe is reality.
Yeah. Oh, this is intense. I mean, like I said, you're the first
Hmm.
person I've actually talked to, uh, that was in the same freaking cult. Um, yeah, this is intense. Um, but I know. I mean, I wasn't born into it, so I can't like relate fully because it's just like being brought up with the all it's just like I had the conflict because it's just like, okay, this is what was, this is what is now, and what is now sucks, you know, and and I fought it every bit, but still, I was still indoctrinated into it. I mean, um, December 26, 2022, I got off an exit onto I-4. I had my daughter in the car with me, and I got sideswiped by a drunk driver who was on the shoulder and jerked to regain control, but she didn't look and see that there was a car right there in the right hand lane. So she spun us out, and I can still remember, in slow motion, like that. I mean, I was already up to like 70 miles an hour when this happened, but you remember things like that in slow motion. And I remember thinking to myself, the blood of Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it was said so many times and so deeply ingrained into you. Like it was almost like if any slight thing happened at all and you didn't say it, like that would damn you because you need to be ready to say it any breath. And if you were distracted by anything and you didn't say it, then you deserve what was coming to you.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, that's nowhere in the Bible.
Oh yeah.
That's something that was made up by Freeman. I mean, and as far as like the other cults that I've covered on this podcast, the blood of Jesus has never come out. So that's something that was pretty much exclusive to Hef.
Oh, and I remember being told like don't emphasize that because people outside the cult won't understand that. They don't understand how beautiful it is. But it was
But
the
freaking out,
bleeding part. Yeah,
freaking out into a freaking in a grocery store because somebody has an Iron Maiden T-shirt on.
yeah.
I mean, jeez, it's just I don't under. I mean, I know how cults work. Okay, they break you down and everything, and they you they basically program you to do it. I get it. I just don't understand how it happens. Because I mean, I want a cult to try to recruit me now.
Well,
I want one to.
I can spot shady people from a mile away. I'm like I'll tell my friends or I'm close to like that person is not right. Because you can spot them a mile away now. I mean, for a while after the cult, I was fooled by some pretty shady people, but now it's like you can spot them a mile away because you've already been through it, and it's you know how they operate.
If I swear, if a cult tries to tries to bring me in, I'm gonna let them. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna expose them, and I'm gonna document it every bit of it for this podcast.
Oh, that would be so much pleasure if someone tried to do that, and you're like, okay, people, like the testimony, like you stay up and because that was a big part of it. You had to
Oh
if you
yeah,
if
the
you didn't stand in front
testimony.
of everybody and tell your
The
story, but
testimonies.
yeah, exactly. Like if you didn't stand up in front of everyone and tell the reason why you were so happy because everything this cult has brought you, then you were a horrible sinner because you need to let everyone know, and yet in every walk of life. I mean, you were talking about talent shows earlier. I was supposed to, I was pressured to join a talent show for school and, sing the songs from the cult so that people would, find the true
Whoa,
path.
are you serious? Oh my
Yeah.
God!
The,
That's freaking horrible. Did you do it?
one of the best things that's ever happened to me is I told the teacher I wanted to do it, and they're like, "With your singing voice, no, you're not doing that." They probably knew because one of my fifth grade teacher was actually a former member, so they probably knew some stuff that I didn't realize as a kid about what was actually going on. But of course they know because you have to you file with the the time they had school nurses. You have to file with the school nurse that you can't receive care, and even as late as middle school, when I was in sixth grade, I cut my thumb almost to the bone on a bandsaw on a woodshop project, and I was not allowed to get stitches for it. I mean, I did go to the school nurse, but I was not allowed to get stitches for it. So that was I carry that scar with me today.
Damn. But
You could they told me that you could see the bone. I wasn't looking.
if a cult tried to bring me in, like I said, I'd let them. And yeah, I'd have a smile on my face the entire time. You know why? Because I'm getting content. I'm going in there with the mindset of bringing this fucking cult down.
And with the internet these days, you can find more about the cult leader. You're like, this is a person
Right.
deceiving, and you could bring some heat. You could do your own sleuthing and definitely bring some people down. Yeah. Google Maps shows this is the house you live, even though you say you live a life of poverty. Why do you have 16 cars in your driveway?
No, that would be fun. I would love to frickin' do that. I mean, that would just be amazing. I would, but I'd have to take a bunch of time off from work though. But and I'll be damned if I'm handing my paycheck over to a cult leader. So maybe it wouldn't work. But anyway. All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there are a lot of prophecies, like the end, the end times about like they had the exact date that Jesus is coming back, like other cults have said. There was a prophecy. I think it was in it was in the 80s. I mean, it was before everything fell apart that they had the exact date, even though the scriptures say no one knows the day or the hour. So
right.
Even if you're a believer, there's no way that someone can tell you, a theological, the correct statement that they know the day or the hour, because it already says no one knows the day or the hour.
Kenzie did that?
I don't know it was him, but there were different people who were prophesying, and there was a huge rumor mill. So there was some stuff that was not necessarily sanctioned. Like when I was talking about the minor key earlier, that wasn't necessarily something that Dr. Freeman had said, but it was kind of something that maybe an associate had said that was never fully considered like a law. But I remember my dad played guitar then, and he was like, yeah, whatever. But there was that rumor, like, how dare you play that minor chord, because somebody said that you probably shouldn't,
Minor chords, that's what's going to cause California to fall off the
yes, exactly,
continent. That was a big thing when when I was doing it. when I was in it and everything, especially because you know there was a cult. I can't remember which cult that it was that brought that rumor out, but it came out because of a cult and about California falling off. I can't remember which one it was, but that was one thing that they really focused on in my satellite location because my grandparents, my grandfather on my mom's side was this frickin' NASA frickin'. I've forgotten more about the space shuttle than a lot of people know. My grandfather worked on the Apollo program. He worked on the space shuttle program. In fact, he is an extra in the movie Armageddon.
Oh, nice.
Because like once he retired, he still he gave tours to people that were coming there to make movies and stuff like that. And he met Ben Affleck, he met Liv Tyler, he met the entire cast. And then there's that scene in the launch control room when they're launching both shuttles at the same time in Armageddon. And you can see his arm. He's like, that's my arm. He's like, I was there when that was filmed.
And of course, that kind of space was considered like almost like evil. But at the same time, I remember. Do you remember there was a concept?
The crazy thing of
go ahead.
Ours, they did not do that. They did not talk about space because our church was literally right across the street from Kennedy, or right across the river from Kennedy Space Center. There was no denying it. Those rockets were going up, but every time a rocket went up, and it was so freaking loud because we're like less than 10 miles away from where it was happening, or maybe more. I don't know, 20 miles, whatever. But still, it's freaking loud. But every time it happened, it's like, praise the Lord, the space shuttle's going off. But there was no denying it because it was happening and we could see it with our eyes.
I don't know if it was a denial, but science was certainly shunned. I mean, certainly anything science fiction was, of course, considered the greatest evil. But there was this, I don't know if your church taught this, but there was this concept called being caught up. It was almost like you were so holy, the earth couldn't contain you. And for a brief moment, you'd be in a trance-like state and you'd basically be in heaven because you're so holy, almost the earth couldn't contain you, and that you would be in heaven for a time.
For a time. But that's what happened to Freeman. He was caught up. He was caught up, and that's why he died. He didn't die because of diabetes. He didn't die because of gangrene. He didn't die.
Yeah.
But it just blows my mind. And I didn't know how I would react to talking to somebody about this. I mean, it's just like I saw red quite a few times during this.
Oh yeah. I mean, like without, it's taken me decades. I mean, basically, my dad left in, was it 84 or 83 even, and it's been that long since I can't freeze up or cry or just completely shut down. Like someone asks me a question and I'll be like gone, like I'm not even there. It's taken me decades to even be able to talk about it. Like I can't believe I even carried this conversation long enough without breaking down. But I think it's just a whole part of my healing process. So and I want to help you out too, because it's almost like we're in this kind of community that other people don't know about, and I want to help you out more than anything else because no one else understands what we went through. So that's what I'm thinking. I'll come on anytime you want.
How do you feel now?
Like it's been lifted from me. Like I can finally say out loud, it's all bullshit. None of it was real. He was a shyster, and I don't feel guilty about it, and I don't feel like I'm going to be cursed or damned or anything because someone else is saying it out loud exactly what I've been feeling. It's all a bunch of BS. The dude was just in it for himself, and there was nothing godly or good about it. And I don't have to feel guilty for doubting any of it.
Right. I'm gonna ask you another question. Okay. You listened to my, episodes 10 and 11 earlier today.
Uh-huh.
How'd you feel after listening to them? I think you see where I'm going with this.
To be honest with you, I was almost shaking. So it's really surprised me that I'm this composed now, but I was almost shaking. It's a lot. It is.
You're doing great.
Well, thank you.
So I'm serious. I'm serious. You're doing great. So okay. Coming on here, because like I said earlier, it's just like I asked you want to come on. You're like, when? I'm like, how about now? and so you did. So what was your mindset then when you decided to do it, like right then? I'm asking you this for a reason, and I'll get to that when I'm done with my series of questions.
Well, tonight I had some plans with my wife, and when I told her like I want to do this, it shocked the hell out of her. Her mind was blown. Like, you really can talk about this? Because we've been together for 7 years now, and this is about the first time I've been able to even say anything out loud practically. Anytime she's asked me a question, I'm like, I can't talk about it now. It's like, when are you going to be able to talk about this? I don't know. But whatever reason, I just had a breakthrough, and I'm like, it needs to be told. I don't care how raw and ridiculous, I might sound sometimes, but the stories need to be out there. Other people are need this because I needed it when you told the story. So I appreciate you, and I'm really grateful for what you've helped me get through today.
So stepping into, I noticed that you were, you were hesitant at first, but the more we talked, you got, a lot more comfortable. And so seriously, well, I already asked you how you feel now. So, but the reason I asked you that, the reason I asked you to break it down like that was just to show people that it's just like Andy found the episodes today. He's doing this interviews conversation with me tonight. Andy, do you feel like a really big weight is lifted off of your shoulders and everything? Do you feel better is my question.
100%. 100%. I feel like I've reached a new chapter here, and it's something that, I can talk about. And, I don't know, I can't explain it, the timing or like that, but I had to find out. I've been doing a little bit of research, and I found some other things that I wasn't quite connecting with as much, but I will do some more research on it. But, hearing a survivor about my age and who's been through a lot of stuff, like, it is a lot different than reading a Wikipedia page that's right. And sometimes in the past when I read it, and like, this is ridiculous. Like, it sounds like he was a good guy for 90% of it. And like, where do you get this information from? Because it is not from an insider, that is really realized what's going on. And I joined the Facebook group for a while, but there's a huge difference in people's experiences. If you haven't lost, like you haven't been through a trauma like you did with the divorce, or like me when I lost my brother. Like, some people still think that they're like somehow the elect, the special remnant that that, and they still carry it with them because they hadn't actually experienced anything, and it's just random chance, like, congratulations, you didn't experience a major loss, but it has nothing to do with your faith,
Well,
because
they
we believed as
did.
hard as anybody else.
They did, but they're still like hook, line, and sinker, you know, you know, into this. They're still all in, and I feel sorry for those people. And
I do,
it
yeah.
really sucks for them, because it's just like, that's not how God intended you to be. God didn't intend you to be a slave. I mean, God, all right, you know what? I'm getting on a freaking religious soapbox now, which is something I've never done before. God liberated the Israelites from Egypt. God did, through Moses. Do you think that God, who liberated, through Moses, liberated the Israelites from Egypt, would then want to see his people be enslaved by a fucking cult leader?
No. I mean, even, I mean, if you want to get like theological, I mean, look at Paul chastising Peter about only eating with Jewish people. Like, even the people who are so, close to Jesus, and so holy, like the most revered people in Christianity, apart from Jesus, committed sin and made mistakes, but somehow this cult leader that started this church in Indiana, and branched out to many other places, and even other countries, somehow he was so holy that even he hasn't committed sin like the apostles might have.
Right. But yeah, it just, I'm glad that this, I'm glad you did this, because it's like, I can only imagine. I remember when I made the discovery and everything, and I was just like, holy crap, this was a cult, and but the more I researched it, the more I looked into it, it was just like, you know what? It all makes sense. Every bit of it makes sense. It was a freaking cult. And, and I can remember, when I was a teenager, I was talking to a friend of mine about this weird church that I grew up in and everything. And I told him, some of the details about it. And he's just like, that's not a church, that's a cult. And that was like what implanted into my mind. It's just like, okay. But I didn't really start, that was like, I don't know, the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. But I didn't really start like doing my research, my discovery mode, until around 2005. But still, and look what's happened as a result of those two episodes. Yeah, a light's being shown on those assholes.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I agreed to talk. I'm like, I've never been on a podcast before, and I'm not like super polished or anything. I mean, but I'm like,
yeah, you're fine.
We need to speak truth to power here, even if the power is deceased in some instances. We need to validate other people's experiences.
But he's not gone. He's not gone, because there's still active sects of this cult around. So yeah,
if we can reach one person that's still in one of these active sects, then
yep,
that validates your entire existence, because it sets someone else free.
But the thing is they're not using the Faith Assembly name anymore, because that's tarnished. So it's gonna be hard to like locate these active sects now, because they're calling themselves something different. They're teaching. There's one that where the frickin' preacher was just playing Hobart Freeman tapes for his service. This was the girl that I went on Human Monsters with. Yeah, that I was telling you about. That was her dad, and he would just sit there and play Hobart Freeman tapes. And it's just like, what? And I said on that podcast, I was just like, what? He's just playing tapes? She's like, yeah. Like, this seems like a really easy gig for your dad.
It sure does. But don't give 80s money. You need to give current money so that we can play more of these tapes. But I have a toast, though. It's good to drink a beer without fear that eternal damnation is near.
Clinks. All right. Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks,
no
Andy,
problem.
for coming on. That was awesome. I mean, I wound up feeling things that I didn't expect to feel. But like I said, you're the first person that I've had on in 3 years, from this cult. So, hopefully we'll get more moving on, as time goes on and everything. But, yeah, it was enlightening. It was maddening. It was, it was all of the above, but overall I enjoyed it. And thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you. And even though it used to be evil, I'll say best of luck to you in all your future endeavors, and I'll be looking at your other content here. And so I'm grateful I found you your 2 episodes here, but I kind of want to learn some more about some other cults to kind of see what the patterns are here too. Because I haven't really been able to do that kind of business. It's been so difficult for me to even think about things like that I've really avoided it. But yeah, I look forward to seeing some of your content too.
Now that you've taken this step and everything, hearing about other cults isn't going to affect you as much.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
So I mean, that's why I've covered probably about 30 of them. And. Yeah, and there's plenty more, but anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like us, if you like the podcast, tell a friend. If you hate it, tell an enemy. And until next time, later. Say bye, Andy.
Bye. That sounded like Borat right there.
You want to do another one? Say bye. Just say see ya or whatever.
Goodbye, everyone, and have a pleasant evening.